The most dangerous act wasn't in the ring, it was behind it. Under the bright lights, polished performances, there's a quieter kind of brutality happening in the shadows. Choices made out of desperation, love twisted into control, and people push past their breaking point of no return. Water for Elephants looks like a story about a circus, but what it's really doing, what it's asking, is how far we'll go to belong and what it costs to finally say enough. In this video, I want to explore the tension without spoiling a single turn of plot. For this review, I'm keeping things completely spoiler free. We'll focus on how the story handles love, cruelty, and the courage to act when it counts the most. If you love stories that explore identity, courage, fear, and hope, I post at least one review and one discussion every week. Make sure you subscribe and like so you don't miss the next video. I am Zach. I want to welcome you all to the Literary Tailor, where we have great books and even better conversations. So with that promise to keep things spoiler free, let's pull back a tent flap and get into the heart of what makes this story tick. Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. We follow Jacob, a young man in his 20s, as he's about to finish vet school at Cornell University. His life is derailed after a tragic event. In this haze of grief, he wanders off into the dark. And he finds himself on a train, not knowing where it's going. Unfortunately for him, this train belongs to a struggling Great Depression era circus. This story splits into two versions of Jacob. One is the young Jacob in his 20s, just trying to survive among the performers, the workers, and the animals in this chaotic and cutthroat environment. We also see the older Jacob in his 90s in a nursing home, just looking back on all these events. As much as this story is about love, there's also a theme of memory, regret, friendship, and survival. As Jacob starts to settle in with the circus, he becomes the circus's new vet. However, this role allows him to be in contact with two key people that changes his life. One is Marlena, the stunning star who controls the horses and the elephants' performances, and also her husband, August. As with Jacob's role as the vet, he comes in contact and forms a bond with a lot of animals, which also adds a more attention as these animals are often involved with the couple, Marlena and August. And this shows how a spectrum of Jacob and August's interaction. As Jacob becomes more compassionate, August with these animals become more cutthroat and they're more about money. Unfortunately, this book features a lot of animal cruelty, as we see an echo of the documentary Blackfish in the pages. We also start to question ourselves. How often do we choose thrill of entertainment over the truth what's happening behind the scenes? As Jacob's role starts to evolve even more, he starts to finally see the truth of the circus. He starts to see how toxic, brutal, and cutthroat it really is. And he starts to question himself even more, how it will cost him just to stay involved with the circus, to be with Marlena. As we start to see Jacob's older self in the nursing home, we come with this question as he appears. When you're at the end of your life, looking back on it, how much actually matters? This is the question that lingers throughout the story as we follow older Jacob as he remembers the events of the past. As promised, I'm keeping this spoiler free. What this story is truly about is a young man thrown into a dazzling, dangerous world. But it's also about his older self, just remembering it. He's just remembering what truly matters: the love, the friendship, the survival, and the courage he had to face. First thing is first, I'm not a huge fan of the romance genre. My first reaction to this book Why didn't I just go with a horror, thriller, drama, comedy, just something else? The Notebook for me? Nope, nope. So when I grabbed this book, knowing that it's going to be a love story, I question if it's even going to be worth it. Fortunately, I'm so glad I went against my instinct because I completely love this book. This story is a love story in the end. It's about a forbidding love triangle. However, it's also about compassion with animals, the fear, and also the American dream. One of the reasons why I like this book so much was the setting of the Great Depression, where we also see a lot of high stakes and high tension, as this period shows how tough it was to just make a dollar, where everyone's decision felt heavy. And we saw this through a lot of these characters, where their decisions often meant life or death. The emotion is another reason why I like this book so much. We went from happiness and I went to disgust in a matter of seconds, which is a great job by the author because she kept me engaged with the story. I want to turn each page just to find out what happens to each character. For me, it was sort of hard to connect with the characters in the beginning. However, I'm glad I kept reading because once I got past the hump, I was hooked with the story throughout. As I finally finished the page and turned the book over, completed the book, I'm also left with a lot of questions, just what the book presented. One is, how much do we love entertainment, the show, so much that we are often ignoring or blinded by what's happening behind the scenes? This quote also is embedded in my mind because I heard it so many times. The show must go on, despite what's happening behind the scenes, which might be death or something just happening behind the scenes, that we are more focused on how the story must go on. Another lingering thought I had during this book was, how much is too much ambition? This is a lingering question because I consider myself very ambitious, but my ambition goes checked. For these characters, their ambition doesn't go unchecked. Their American dream goes above another person's. So I question rather, how much do we value our own ambition for other people? Do we allow ourselves to climb even higher than others, or do we actually help the other people climb themselves? This is a book about that. Another lingering question I had as I finished this book was this idea of hope. What is truly hope? For me, hope isn't really about achieving everything you want. It would be nice. However, it's about finding ways to still be human and kind to each other, even when the system around you is trying to push you to become the opposite. As I finished the book and reflected on it, I asked myself, what really works for me here? One is the setting. I'm a huge fan of the Great Depression era books because it just adds another layer of desperation, economic hardships, and what really people are willing to do for their ambitions. Also, the tension of spectacle versus suffering. Are we willing to look past everything just for that one thrill? One key idea that I enjoyed about the story was this idea of relationships. Yes, down to its core, it's a love story. It's a love triangle story. However, it's more about this loyalty between workers, bond with animals, and the conflict with those in power. So this idea, this relationship idea, feels more like something else than just a love story. Another thing I like about this story is it's not afraid to go to a dark place, such as animal cruelty and cruelty in general, because I think this is a great idea for everyone to recognize, as this happens behind the scenes still today. A few quick things that didn't work for me. The time slip for me from old Jacob to young Jacob just wasn't a thing that was interested in for me. It might be interest for someone else, but for me, I like to stay with one person, one version of themselves, and just follow them throughout the whole journey, not flipping back and forth between two. The one thing that really didn't work for me was the pacing. Sure, everything throughout the whole book, the pacing was brilliant. However, it was the beginning that really left me detached early on. It just felt a little slow, but once I kept on reading, I'm glad I did. I just enjoyed the whole story throughout. As promised, I'm keeping this spoiler free. However, I need to mention one thing though. In the beginning, Jacob's tragic event, still spoiler, I felt it was a little too rushed for me. And I felt it was too quick and muted. I think this was a missed opportunity where the readers can feel the emotion from Jacob from this event. So there you have it. Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. What this main theme of this story is forbidden romance. It's a love triangle. I know this might be a thing that turns you away from the book. However, I suggest you actually read it still, because even though it's a romance, it's also about ambition, cruelty, and what it really costs for a spectacle. So, have you guys ever read Water for Elephants? Or is there another book that completely surprised you in ways that you weren't expecting, especially if this wasn't your usual genre preference? Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a likes and subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps the channel grow even more. I am Zach, and I want to welcome you all to Literary Tailor, where we have great books and even better conversations. Thank you for watching, and until next time, happy reading.